Still waiting for Doug and Joanna here, so I'm going to go ahead and introduce everybody as impromptu. Um, Welcome everybody to the Center for Cultural Affairs this morning. We're joined here with, hi Trina.
Hi.
Hi, it's nice to meet you in person or over Zoom.
Nice to meet you.
Hi. So this workshop is at 9 a.m. our time, 3 a.m. across the seas. We're joined here with Esben Danielsen and Andrea Baldin. They're going to be collaborating here for their talk this morning on vouchers as cultural policy instrument, experiences from Denmark and Italy. And they'll be talking briefly, and then we'll have time for a Q&A. Trina, did you want to say anything about the collaboration?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, I would be happy. Yes.
Yeah.
And welcome everybody. My name is Trine Bille, and I'm a professor of cultural economics at Copenhagen Business School. And we have a center called Imagine, Research in Cultural and Creative Industries. And I'm very happy to co-organize these seminars in the fall together with Center for Cultural Affairs, with Joanna and Douglas Noonan. And as you know, probably we have a theme this fall. It's about comparative cultural policy. And this particular seminar is on cultural vouchers. So we have this question or theme or about cultural vouchers as a cultural policy instrument, how they work and what is the evidence. And for that we have two speakers. We have Andrea Baldin. And Andrea, you will talk about evidence from Italy with app 18. And after that, we have Esben Danielsen, and Esben will talk about a new voucher in Denmark, cultural voucher. It has just been launched, but you will talk about the ideas behind it and also give some a discussion about it.
Yes.
And since we have and since we have two speakers today, I think we could give them 20 minutes each. And then in the end, we have 20 minutes left for a general discussion. So if that's okay for you, Rebecca, I think we'll go over that.
Yes, perfect.
And then I will invite you, Andrea, to begin. So the word is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. I try to share the screen. Okay, can you see?
Yes.
And do you hear me? Yes? Good.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, Trine, Joanna, and Becca for inviting me and for the organization of this seminar. I'm from Foscari University of Venice, and I'm here to talk about the Italian experience of a cultural voucher called 18 app. That was also the focus of an empirical study I made with some colleagues where we tried to assess the causal effect of a cultural voucher in fostering cultural consumption. The Italian voucher was the first experiment in Europe of this cultural policy tool, and it was imitated by other countries with a similar design. So let me first Okay, let me first provide a brief context of cultural voucher in cultural policy. You know that one of the main cultural policy theme is about how the government should subsidize the cultural sector. And this how affect also the allocation of public funds among different cultural organizations and different cultural form. So basically what the government subsidize is the supply side, so cultural organizations, artists, and so on. And in this regards, we have three main models. We have the US model that is based on tax exemptions. So basically are the donors that receive tax benefit that decide which cultural organizations to support. Then we have on the other side the European model in which we have the direct subsidies by the government, so the granting decisions are made by bureaucrats. And we have the UK model, so the government provides funds to an arm's length agency, like in the UK the Arts Council, and this agency, composed mainly by experts, decide how to allocate these public subsidies. There is an alternative system opposed to the supply side subsidy that is emerging in the last years in Europe, that is to subsidize the demand side through vouchers. So providing funds to the consumers to increase cultural consumption with the benefit also to producers. There are some pros and cons in using vouchers as a cultural policy tool compared to the traditional supply side approach. We have Peacock, a liberal economist, who in a paper in 1994 argues in favor of cultural voucher for the consumer sovereignty principle. So his opinion is that are the consumers that should decide how to allocate public funds among cultural organizations based on their preference expressed in the market. This is opposed to the other view in which the government on the Arts Council decide in a paternalistic way what is good for the society, what should be subsidized. Another pro is that typically the government or Arts Council subsidize the high arts, let's say, so opera, theater, museums, and so on, which are more likely attended by high-income people. So in this sense, the high-income people would benefit more from the tax transfer compared to low-income people with regressive effect. A cons is that if we let the consumers to decide the allocation of public resources, the risk is that the more commercial and better known artists would receive most of the fund at the expenses of more experimental and innovative cultural organizations. Another risk is the so-called crowding out effect of public resources, but I will come back on this point later. Another issue about the voucher is the identification of the target population. So who should receive the voucher? So typically what is recommended by cultural economists is that the voucher should be addressed to young people, children, students, because we know that the cultural consumption is strongly affected by the consumption made in early ages. So in this way, the recipients can develop and cultivate taste for culture that make them to increase their consumption in the future. So it is a kind of investment that yield higher results in the long term. Another debated issue is whether the voucher should be universal, so given regardless the income, or should be a means tested voucher. So only people below an income threshold should receive the voucher. This is another debated issue that I'll come back later. So coming to the Italian voucher, in 2016, the Italian government introduced this cultural voucher called 18 Up. It is a universal voucher, so all the Italian citizens reaching the age of 18, regardless of the household income, can register with their digital identity on a dedicated platform and gain access to a voucher that worth 500 euros. This voucher could be spent in different forms of cultural consumption, so tickets for cinema, theater, concerts, opera, museums, monuments, archaeological areas, books, music in both digital and physical format, and also subscription to newspaper. So there is a period of 6 months for the registration, and the voucher must be spent within 1 year of registration. So basically, the recipients have an app on their device that is a kind of virtual wallet by which for every purchase they can create a shopping voucher that is an alphanumeric code in case of purchase made online or a QR code in case of purchase made on a physical store. The cultural organization or shop owners that receive the voucher will receive the money back from the state in forms of tax credit. So here are some numbers provided by the Ministry of Culture. We have the data until the edition that expire in 2024. So most important data are the budget allocated for the voucher. It is around 300 millions of euro, and the take-up rate, so the percentage of eligible who subscribe to the voucher, that is around 70% with an increasing rate. We have a lower rate for the 2019 edition, that is the voucher spent in 2020, so during the lockdown period. Here we have the use rate, so the percentage of shopping voucher created in relation to the overall voucher for each cultural goods, and the expense rate. And we can see that the voucher has been used mainly for books, especially in the edition in which the voucher was spent during the lockdown period, but also for cinema. This type of voucher was replaced in 2024 by the Italian government with the introduction of 2 vouchers, both worth 500 euros, and both are addressed to 18 years old people, but with some restricted criteria. And the changes so are related not to the design of the voucher, but to the target population. So on one side we have the merit card, so still 18 years old, who achieve top marks in their school leaving certificate, so the score of 100 out of 100. And the critics that this exclude people with lower learning abilities who are the ones who could benefit most from cultural participation. The other is the youth cultural card, still addressed to 18 years old, but from low-income household. So it is a means-tested voucher. The critics are the administrative cost, because you have to check the income of the family, and the fact that these exclude also people from low and middle-income households. But we don't have data on this new cultural voucher, so I'll continue to talk about the original voucher, the 18 Up, that has been imitated, as I said at the beginning, also in other countries. So we have the Bono Cultural introduced in Spain in 2022, the Pass Culture in France 2021, and the Cultural Pass in Germany 2023. By the way, in the last cultural conference, cultural economics conference in Rotterdam, there was a colleague who made a similar study than mine about the bono cultural in Spain with similar results. But that is still a work in progress. So the main difference of the voucher are on one side, beside the value of the voucher, also some restriction about the money allocation. So for instance, in the case of Spain, we have a maximum 200 euros for cultural activities, 100 for physical cultural goods, and 100 euros for digital and online goods. In the case of France, this is interesting because in this case, the state gives 25 euros when you are 15 years old, 30 euro when you are 16, 30 euros when you are 17, and 300 euros when you are 18 years old. In this case, there is a cap of 100 euros for digital goods and online consumption. For Germany, it is decided by the recipients, as in the case of Italy. A very interesting aspect concerns the goods and activities included in the basket. So the Italy, I've already mentioned which one. In the Spain, we have also video games included. So there can be a debate on whether the video games industry could benefit from a cultural voucher. So if it is fair that they receive public funds. In France, we have video games and also musical instruments, so it is a way to promote also amateur activities. And in Germany, the online consumption digital cultural goods are excluded. Another aspect of the French case is that it can't be used for goods sent by the courier as Amazon, because one of the aim of the voucher is to make young people to rediscover the physical bookstores instead of buying books through Amazon. So which type of cultural goods and activity should be included in the voucher is a political decision with also some implications, because you can see that we have both cultural organizations that receive public funds, but we have also private firms, includes big corporations that operate in the private market. So for instance, Spotify, Apple Music, Sony, Warner, and so on. So this is an important point when a cultural voucher should be designed. There was a debate, for instance, in Spain, because many vouchers were used to buy tickets for a reggaeton festival. So is it fair that public money are used for a reggaeton festival? In France, there was the case of the mangas. There was an explosion of manga sales after introduction of the voucher, but this is a sector that already goes well in the market, so it is necessary. We can discuss about this aspect later. Anyway, we made a study with 2 colleagues of mine, Anna Marenzi and Francesca Zantomio. This study is published in Journal of Economic Behavior and Organizations, in which we aim to assess the causal effect of the voucher in fostering cultural consumption. So we had 2 main questions we want to address. The first is the impact evaluation. So if the voucher actually increase cultural consumption, for which cultural consumption, and the second is the distribution profile of recipient response, in the sense how people with different income react to the voucher. We can have different situations. So on one side, we have low-income people that are less likely to engage in cultural consumption, This can depend to different barrier of participation. If the barrier of participation is the financial constraint, so the voucher can be effective tool. But if the barrier of participation is the lack of interest, the voucher is not an effective tool. Because if people are not interested in cultural consumption, you can provide funds, but they don't consume. On the other side, for high-income people that are more likely to engage in cultural consumption, one effect can be that they can further increase their consumption, so the voucher is effective. On the other side, there can be the crowding out effect, so public funds replace private funds that would be spent in any case also without the voucher. So I replace public money, I replace my private funds with public money. In this case, the voucher is not effective. So, very briefly, the study, we use the survey carried out by the Italian Institute of Statistics, aspect of daily life that include also questions about cultural consumption. This survey involves each year around 90,000 households and 40,000 people. We consider 7 waves of the survey from 2013 to 2019, so a long period including before the introduction of the voucher in 2016 and after. And very briefly, the method is in diff in diff. We basically compare 2 groups of people, one people that received the voucher and one a group of similar people or made comparable through statistics technique. And we compare the trend of these 2 groups before and after the introduction of the voucher. And in this way, we can see the effect in consumption for people who receive the voucher. Here are the main results. More detailed results are available in the paper. I show the results based on the income level, so we consider high and low income level. The results circled in red are the significant ones, so the cultural forms in which we see an effect. And here you can see that we have an effect mainly for low-income people. So here in terms of participation rate, for instance, we see an increase of participation rate to cinema of 6.2%, specifically due to the voucher. We see effect also for non-classical concert, around 5%, for number of books read, and also for online purchase of books and e-books. For higher income people, we see an effect only for online purchase. In terms of number of events, so the number of attendance, we see an effect only for low-income people, for cinema, classical concerts, other concerts, and also museum. So we have a positive effect, but this effect is mainly driven by low-income people. Here, I don't go into the details, just to show. We try to calculate the extent of crowding out. So what is the additional expenditure due to the voucher for each public euro given to the recipients. So for instance, we see that there is an increase in expenditure of 13 cents for each 1 public euro spent. So there is a partial crowding out effect. Okay. So the voucher has partially replaced private expenditure that would happen in any case also without the voucher, but create also additional expenditure. We see also if there is a longer-term effect, so basically people who have received the voucher in the past, once the voucher has expired, if they still consume more compared to similar people that have never received a voucher. And with this, we see this effect with cinema. So this is also due to the characteristic of cultural consumption based on habit formation, development and cultivation of taste. So, in conclusion, we see that there is a causal evidence of the effect of the Italian voucher in fostering cultural participation, and this effect is driven mainly by low-income individuals. The study I mentioned before by Fatima Espinosa, that is a work in progress, but the preliminary results for the Bono Cultural show that there is a positive effect for digital cultural consumption, live arts, cultural heritage, and audiovisual arts. There is a less than total crowding out of public resources. We see a longer-term effect for cinema. And finally, consideration concerning if the voucher should be universal or means tested. We see the effect is mainly for low-income people, but we should consider also the fact that cultural consumption has a social dimension that is important to consider, because the effect of the voucher can also be seen there is a kind of social multiplier effect. So the utility of consumption increases if this consumption is shared, and this leads also to imitative behavior. So giving the voucher only to a subset of the population based on income risks to make weaker this aspect of imitative behavior and network effect. So, but we can debate about this aspect. Okay, so thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Andrea. I think this is really interesting evidence, and it's also interesting to see that how countries in Europe are actually copying the idea about vouchers from Italy to Spain to Germany and now Denmark. So Esben, we recently got this cultural voucher in Denmark, and I have invited you to talk about what we are going to do in Denmark because it's just launched. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, Trine. Thank you for participating, and thank you, Andrea. We have used your work in Denmark, so greetings from Denmark. It's so nice to see you live on screen. I will try to share my short presentation here. In Denmark, I think we maybe use the wrong English expression. We call it a cultural pass. So if you will find the things we have done in Denmark in English, it's not called a cultural voucher, but a cultural pass. Just if you search on it and for further information. My name is Esben Danielsen. I'm CEO of the Danish Institute for Cultural Policy Analysis. And our work is to inform the democratic institution and decision makers to take better decisions in the cultural life in society. So when we have Danish politicians seen the interesting voucher settings in other countries, like Trine said, they took up in Denmark 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, we should have such a voucher solution in Denmark. It happened in another way than done in Italy and Spain, mainly. But at first, the discussion and debate was to do the same, basically. So we have looked into, by the work of Andrea and others, what is the experience of the vouchers in Europe, and I can share a short link in later on where you could see a short resume in English. But basically, the debate in Denmark is a discount card. You should be able to participate in cultural activities, and here it's in Denmark we expel products. It should be activities and not products. That was the first part of it, and to a lower price or even for free. And when we looked into the experience from other countries, the big debate in Denmark changes. At first it was for all, and it was for all youngsters. We have a lot of experience in Denmark giving things like this to children, called leisure cards, where you can participate in community activities for free or for lower price, mainly for lower income families. So that started the debate in Denmark, and decision came that it should be focused on vulnerable persons. It should not be for all. It should be for a target group, which basically now is formulated for 2 years as a test. And it was decided to run this year and next year, but it has just been launched, so it's quite late, you can say. So we will look into, would it maybe continue an extra year? I don't know yet. At first, the focus was on cultural activities for community building or participation. So it should be activities you do together with others. Due to the political process, sports activities was included. And the reason, I think, you cannot be sure, but that the sports activities in a community setting is much better organized in Denmark and therefore much easier to work with than cultural community activities. So I think the politicians here were more sure of a success if they included sports activities as well. But that's my personal opinion. I will see if that is true ahead of this. The target group is people between 15 and 24 years old without a job and without education. So the situation is focused not on income, but indirect it is, because a lot of young people in this situation has a low income. And you will also find young people in a quite bad situation. It could be a bad mental situation. Some is maybe in a crime activity or things like that. It's a part of the group. And it's around 50,000 Danish youngsters, which is the target group here. And you should be approved to be able to have the cultural voucher to be in a group like this. It has also been one of the political discussions. Do we now set a mark on special young people that they are in some kind of different situation than most young people? But so far you have to say loud that you are without job or without education to be able to get your cultural voucher. The setup is split in two. One setup, which has been running already for half a year, is 15 specialized social projects with a small specific target group within this target group, mostly young people who are in some kind of discomfort in life. This project has been applied for from cultural actors, and it should be projects which have basically some experience, so they should already have shown results. And then the Ministry of Culture would decide which 15 should be chosen, and they are running right now. And I'm not sure how many young people can participate, but it's a few. I think it's a few hundred which are able to participate in all in this part of the cultural pass discussion. This is basically not a voucher, but the activities here are for free for the people, and it's focused on the model which is behind all this, the ABC model. You may have heard of it, which is a model saying if you act, belong, and commit into communities, you will improve in life. So basically the idea is a health thinking that if you are active in meaningful community activities, you will be in less discomfort, you will have easier to start up education, maybe easier to find a job. That's the idea behind it. And you could really discuss if you can go from that theoretical idea, also explored quite well, but into a cultural voucher. But that's basically the political discussion behind. The second path in this project is the voucher or app solution, which is basically a MasterCard you get on your mobile phone with around $150 on for a year. And you can have it for 2 years so far, a person. And you can use them to buy in on approved community activities within culture and sports. So you cannot choose yourself. It cannot be everything. The people who can approve activities should be approved at first, and then all the activities you can choose between are presented in an app, And I think right now it's more than 2,000 different activities, which is quite many in Denmark, but still they are mainly focused on the bigger cities. And the main population of these young people without job and without education are living outside the bigger cities. So already here, that could be some interesting question is what will happen ahead. We haven't seen it in function yet. You have to apply to get the MasterCard. And then if you are approved, then you can get the app, and then you can see the activities which you can use the 1,000 Danish kroner to take part in. The activities should be community activities. That is a big question. What is this? Because you can go to a concert, you can go into the cinema, but you should then do it with somebody else together, or it should be organized in some way. I think it's one of the critical discussions ahead. How are these activities, and are they well functioning within the idea of creating cool community building together? The concerns which have been raised several times, it's also some experience from Andrea's work and others' work, is that this process of being digital registered and get approval and all that bureaucracy which could be in this can be even more difficult for young people in a difficult situation than other young people. So maybe it's hard to get approved. Denmark is a very digital society. Most young people have a mobile phone and can register and have a credit card on their mobile phone. So maybe they have seen it before, but this is a question mark. Will this succeed, or is it only the most well-functioning young people who will be able to go through the approval process, which takes several steps and are digitally run, and you should show who you are and get approved by a digital ID and so on. And the activities you have to choose by the app solution or the voucher solution are individual, but they should be community-based. Can that happen, really? Which activities do this? And do they really help the young people who should be less dissatisfaction in their life? Maybe help them for education? Is that a real thing happening? And everybody is looking into how should this be evaluated and a follow-up. And our decision makers has not said, yes, how should this be evaluated? And I think we are in overtime, because to be able to evaluate this good, you should start right now. Nobody knows how it will function yet. And one of the key findings is the activities relevant to the target group. If they look on the app and see activities only placed along travel from them in a bigger city where they do not live, some activities they do not know, can they travel with somebody else, participate with somebody else? Does it really function? We know that this is barriers which maybe can be bigger barriers than just the economical part. You will not participate maybe in something you do not know, even though it's for free. It's basically one of the experience we have so far. So that's basically where we are in Denmark right now, and we are all tense because it's have been a big political discussion, and a lot of cultural institutions are looking into this, and hopefully for them they will have a young audience they haven't had before who will come, and it's a young audience who have maybe not come before. That's the hope to this, but let's see. In our government this is a quite big issue, and they have really a demand of success because there have been a lot of debate, a lot of discussion in it. As an analyst, it's just fun to follow a project to inspired so internationally, and it's so cool that Andrea and others already following it in Europe, so we can get the experience and then look into it, what will be done or not good in the Danish model. Thank you.
Thank you, Esben. Yes, I think we have a unique opportunity here to look into some evidence of these vouchers or culture policy models, and also I think the Danish way of doing it is very ambitious in the sense that it is also about giving these young people kind of a better life. The outcome is also to have more people, young people, going into education or getting jobs or being well prepared for life in a better way. So than if they didn't use this opportunity. So I think that would be really interesting to study. But thank you so much, Esben. And now we have time for questions. I think there are already some questions here. Let me see. I saw a hand. Maybe.
We also have a couple of questions.
Was there a hand? Yeah.
We also have a couple of questions in the chat.
Yes. Rebecca, I don't know if you, I think there was a hand raised.
No, I was just clapping.
No, okay. But there's a question here, and that's for you, Esben. In the chat, does the Danish model include activities such as classes or music lessons in community facilities? Facilities, yeah.
Yes, it does. The main problem of these art classes and music classes in Denmark that they are quite expensive. So here, $150 is only covering a minor amount of the total expense, but the possibility are there.
Then there's also in the chat a question for Andrea. In many countries, cultural vouchers are used mainly for books and cinemas, as in France, with its cultural pass policy. Why do you think demand is concentrated in these cultural categories? Why are people choosing books and cinemas? I think you're muted,
Sorry,
Andrea.
yes,
Yeah.
I realize now. Thank you for your question. I think that the choice made with voucher reflect the choice made in the market also in absence of the voucher. So as in the market, these are the main consumed cultural goods and activities. These reflect also in the voucher. The point is that if the voucher leads to an increase to a specific cultural goods compared to a situation without voucher. So for instance, there can be some cultural form that I want to participate, but it's too expensive. So once I have the voucher, I can afford this expenditure. This is the case, for instance, of opera and classical concert for low-income people. Yeah, another thing that I want to add about the Italian voucher, I don't know if it holds also for the French one, is that you can use the voucher also to buy textbook. So as for the students, they have in any case to buy textbook. So once you have the voucher, you use the voucher to buy something that you have to buy also without the voucher. So I think this is one explanation why most of the voucher are used for books, because in this case it's not a luxury good, but it's something you need in any case. But this is just my interpretation.
Thank you. Since we have many people here from the US, it would also be interesting to hear about the UX experience. Maybe Joanna, you raised your hand.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. So I would love to hear actually if there are any policy sector, so people who are working in the policy sector in the US that are considering vouchers. I know a couple of local municipalities, cities have considered vouchers, so nothing at the state scale or larger scale. But I think, hearing the motivation, Esben, for the Danish program suggests to me that there is likely so you mentioned the motivation of choosing types of activities that are social, and that is one of the major sort of themes or motivations for the Danish program. And I wonder if Andrea, in your research, looking at all of these different countries' voucher systems, whether or not there's been a specific motivation at play that has driven these voucher programs. So, for example, the headline about France not being very happy with the culture pass because of the manga, right? There seems to be that there was a motivation behind that type of program, and whether or not those motivations differ, and then, also what implications does that have for policy analysis? I mean, really, we should be looking at, so with the Danish program, we should be looking at whether or not uptake increased social integration and socialization overall. But I wonder if the policy impact could be actually evaluated a little differently based on what the policy motivation was.
Can I? Johan, I think your question very similar to Adam's question, I guess, that asked what is on the minds of the decision makers when they decide. Yeah, this is my interpretation. I think that in that years there was a kind of need from policymakers to give the impression that young people are important in the decision-making process. So I think that is the reason. So we start to give priority importance to this target of the population. And so the voucher is also an instrument to make, not only for cultural consumption, but also to make them more responsible in managing funds. So at least in Italy, most of the 18 years old rely on the parents' income. Parents give the money. In this case, it's like they say, okay, we give these funds, and then you have to manage these funds in the way you want. So it's kind of to put some responsibilities on the hands of young people. I don't know if this makes sense, but
yes, that makes perfect sense, and actually relates to another idea, which is maybe you can talk a little bit about, and if you've come across this in your research, what's the psychology behind giving the money directly to the individuals versus giving the money to the organizations to make their programs more widely available? I think you probably, I sort of know the answer to that, but I'd love to bring that out as a discussion point for the group, because we could just give the money to organizations and say, okay, let everybody in 18 under and free. And people do, and organizations do that, but why doesn't that work?
Absent, do you want to reply first? So I think a little bit.
It's okay. In the Danish experience, the key is not that it's free. We have a lot of projects. For example, all the national museums has been free for youngsters and for other groups. And the people who participate when it's free more, or who participate more, is the people who were interested at first. So the people who came before just are participating more. So experience is that economical issues are not the most important barrier in Denmark. We are also a quite wealthy society, also for the youngsters. So therefore, the interesting part here is, can you change behavior by giving the purpose directly to the youngsters, and can they choose instead of the society choose what they should do because we think it's good for them to go in theater or go into museums. And what I'm interested in Denmark is, do they choose something which was not expected, but because they cannot choose for free, maybe we cannot see that. It depends on which activities are possible to choose. And they are approved beforehand. We are not sure which activities will be there because this can be there can be much more activities put on the list for the next month. So something will happen. But we know in Denmark that youngsters are mainly going to festivals for rock music or pop music or hip hop. They go to cinemas and they go a lot in the libraries. So basically, we should look into what they have done already. It would be interesting if they would do this, but library is already for free. So there's a lot of in this, basically.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. Come on, Andrea.
No, yeah, I was thinking about one of questions. I was also thinking about the reaction by cultural suppliers when the government was discussing about changing the scheme of the voucher, because at the beginning the debate was on eliminating the voucher. Then there was a kind of public discussion, and that the government decided for these two vouchers. And the supplier were they were against this elimination of the voucher, because they were really supportive about the voucher. And I think that from a psychological mechanism, if the state gives the funds to the supplier, this has no effect on the individuals. But if the individuals that never consume, but if a person that never consume receive the money as this opportunity, maybe this can be a larger incentive to start for cultural consumption. So maybe if the individual perceives that the state is giving a kind of attention to them, maybe this can change the behavior. This can be, I don't know, a psychological mechanism, but again, this is just an interpretation that came in my mind.
Thank you, Andrea. I think we have a question from Michael Teltman.
Hello.
Michael?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. Question about Denmark, and I know this is a nonprofit setting, but are there linguistic restrictions on the activities that can be used under the voucher? Do they have to be in Danish? Can they be in English or other languages? Thanks.
There are no linguistic. It can be all languages. I will expect most of them to be in Danish, but it's a really interesting question. Nobody had asked me that before, but we have seen no restrictions. It can be in all languages.
And
Thank
no
you,
restriction
Esben.
on that side in the Italian case.
Michael Washington, you also posted a comment or question in the chat. Maybe you want to say it yourself?
Okay, thank you, Trina. Yeah, my comment was just going back to Alan Peacock and his advocacy for vouchers, and it was based on, well, the government should not be paternalistic about this, and it should allow consumer sovereignty and people can make up their own minds. I don't think he had 18-year-olds in mind. Those of us who have, been just in the process of seeing people through their 18th year would say that actually they could use a fair bit of direction in terms of cultural consumption. So it's odd that this is where vouchers have ended up. Were he around to see this, he might either wonder or chuckle at this.
That's a good comment.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. There's also a question here in the chat about considering tourist passes as a sort of voucher. That's for you, Andrea.
Yes. I have to be honest. I don't know what tourist pass is exactly. So for sure, Chiara knows much better than me about this tourist pass.
But maybe Chiara wants to
Hi,
to pose the
everyone.
question yourself. Yeah.
Hi, Chiara.
Hello. Very interesting, both of you. Thank you for your presentations. Some experiences, talking about tourist passes, it's basically, a card. Now it's of course immaterial, by which a tourist staying at a place can get discounts or even free entry to some cultural institutions, and not just. In some cases, they are included in the tourist tax. So in some sense, they are perceived as for free. And I mean, it's, I find it similar with respect exactly to the psychological boost it gives to someone, I guess. It's like a nudge, maybe, especially if it's a discount and not a free access. But my experience, I've been working on data on these tourist passes, and similar conclusions are there. I mean, substitution maybe is present, but there's an overwhelming element. I mean, demand increases considerably, and this means that institutions can live on that better. Simply as simple as that. There's literature on tourist passes.
Okay.
A very interesting contribution just recently out on Annals of Tourism Research by the Bologna Group. So.
And this is interesting because there was some proposal concerning, not made by policymakers, but in academia, about the Venice access fee. One proposal is that, okay, we made the daily visitors fee, but we give like free tickets for the museum in Venice. So that is based on the same idea, I guess, of the tourist pass.
But given the congestion in Venice's museums, I wonder if that's a good idea, unless you're talking about very very marginal, so to say, museums.
Yeah. You know that tourists are concentrated in 2-3 main attractions, and there are other that, less attended.
Thank you. I think the time is unfortunately almost up. I think we could continue with this discussion quite a long time. I would like to pose as very short questions to both Esben and Andrea, which is also related to the last one here in the chat about the purpose of this. Do we really see this as instrumental benefits in a way? Could we have kind of a long-term benefit for these people, young people, or is it more, can it be more seen as a gift and something that has to do with now in their 18 years, when they're 18, they can consume more culture, and hopefully this will make sense, because this is also how do we evaluate this? Is this about the outcome in the long term, or is it about that they are actually now using it? And this is something we want to provide as a society. Maybe just a short comment to that question by each of you, and I think we need to end the session.
I could start quickly and say in Denmark, the focus is the long-term effects. That's the political idea behind it.
Andrea?
Well, in the paper, we try to see if there is this long-term effect. In that case, not very long-term effect, because given that the instrument is new, so in this case, just 1 year after expiration of the voucher effect. We have found only for cinema, but I think that in principle, yeah, there should be a long-term effect. If what the theory says about cultural consumption is correct. Clearly, this would be more effective for more like younger consumers than 18 years old. That is the logic of the voucher in France. So I start to give money when you're 15 years old, I increase until you arrive at 18 years old. I think that that scheme is, in this sense, is more effective.
Thank you so much to both of you and for all the comments and good questions. I think this is a theme to be continued, and hopefully also much more knowledge about this, much more evaluation, so we can also support society the best way. But thank you so much. I think this has been a great seminar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.